Thanks for joining us for the Voices of Parents in Recovery as Catalyst for Change session. My name is Maria Margaglione, and I'm the Programs Director here at DBSA. Today, we have a panel of parents with us, Dr. Cynthia Pilch, Jackie Martinez, and Dr. Ann Whitman. Joining them is our moderator, Elisa Stepanian. Thanks for being with us, and we look forward to a good discussion. We have a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and jump in. Today, parents with mental health and/or substance use challenges often feel shame and stigma from their communities when it comes to their role as parents. So in today's session, we're hoping to reduce stigma of parents with lived experience, promote hope and resiliency, break negative cycles around parenting, and share lessons learned and resources. So we're going to start off by watching a piece which was developed by the Center for Excellence for Psychosocial and Systemic Research at Mass General Hospital. This peer-led initiative is intended to help raise awareness of the challenges that parents who struggle with behavioral health concerns face, including stigma, shame, and balancing their own recovery with taking care of their children. This video runs about 15 minutes. Afterward, Lisa will lead our panelists in an engaging discussion. So without further ado, let's get started on the video. We go.
I'm Ann Whitman on behalf of the Center of Excellence of Psychosocial and Systemic Research at Mass General Hospital. We've created a video for parents with mental health, substance use challenges, and their providers. We want to raise awareness, reduce stigma and isolation, and improve the lives of parents and their children. We now invite you to explore our stories. Thank you.
So my name is Beth Stark. I am 40 years old. I have a 4.5-year-old son named Philip, and he is wonderful. My mental health issues probably popped up in my late teens and kind of came to a head after I had my son at age 36. It was at that point that I was eventually given a diagnosis of having postpartum depression, bipolar disorder, and I was in the throes of alcoholism. When we found out we were pregnant, I was over the moon. Elated. I had my son, and about 7 weeks after having him, the postpartum kicked in. And at that same point, I started drinking again. And it was during that time that I felt I lost complete control over who I was becoming.
I have 3 children. I have 2 with mental health issues. My substance use and my mental illness affected my parenting style tremendously. So my children had to fend for their own as far as fixing themselves something to eat, washing their own clothes, and taking care of themselves. In the early years, my relationship was very strained with my children. They did not trust me. And it came a time when my daughter became the parent, and she ended up taking care of me once I became very mentally incapacitated at one time.
I tried to keep my illness out of my parenting and not pulling my kids into my illness. That said, it definitely has affected my parenting. I started to suffer from intrusive thoughts. They became so bad that I couldn't interact with the kids at all for a while. So I just totally withdrew.
I'm a single mom. I raised my daughter. She's now 35, and she's really the star of my life. When I got sick, everything kind of fell apart. I lost my home, my doctoral program, and my job. I had to give my child to my parents for 2.5 years. It was a stressful time, but my daughter seemed to do okay because she could hold on to the fact that I was going to see her every weekend. And I'd go through my mental health program, day treatment programs. As time passed, I was able to tell her that I was having a hard time thinking and feeling.
Okay, I'm Ann Whitman. I have a 35-year-old daughter, and I've been in recovery from mental health and substance misuse challenges for over 30 years. Well, at the age of 33, I had just given up nursing my baby daughter, and I began to feel that my office was under electronic surveillance. Within a year, I'd been fired from my job. I'd lost custody of my daughter, and most of my friends had given up calling me, and I was embroiled in a bitter divorce. I felt a tremendous amount of shame and loss, and I began to decompensate.
I didn't know who to tell that I had a problem. I was a brand new mom. Who do you go tell that you think your drinking's scaring you? So I went to a support group. No one was saying I'm drinking too much. My mood feels strange. I don't feel like myself. And so eventually I stopped going. Then the labels came out. Bad mom. You obviously don't love your son. How could you ruin everything like that? So you're feeling already terrible about yourself because you realize you have a lot of problems that you have to sort through. And everybody just thinks you're a bad mom. I know now that I wasn't a bad mom. I was a sick mom that needed help. And there's a big difference between the two.
Stigma was really difficult around the mental health challenges. In my community, a lot is not understood about mental health recovery. And in fact, it got so bad, like after I gone through that experience of what other people thought about me, I felt judged. I felt less than. I really felt hopeless. I just thought I'd never have another happy day. So that stigma, it almost took me out. That self-stigma and how other people responded to me. Everybody was focusing on what's wrong with me, not what's wrong with me. And I think what's helped though is by overcoming that and getting that peer support of being able to connect with other people going through similar stuff. It gave me strength.
So the parents of these children that were her friends were kind of like, who are you? They might not have known what my issues were, but there was that, alienation. I told one of the children's mothers one day that I had some issues. She got so scared. I could see it on her face, and she grabbed her children and brought them in like I was going to hurt her children. And I would never hurt a child. She just totally didn't understand. That I felt was an inability on her part to see the real feelings that we have.
I was told that I couldn't talk to my daughter for 6 weeks while I was inpatient. They felt I needed to focus on my recovery. And I felt a certain amount of stigma not being able to talk to my daughter, and I could have used an advocate to help with communication. Other ways that I felt stigma was a tremendous amount of self-stigma. I was very shameful, and my daughter had a birthday, and it was during her time with her dad. And so I felt I couldn't give her a birthday party because she'd already had one with her dad, and I was the non-custodial parent. But I was attending a group called Mothers Without Custody, which was a community organization. And they convinced me that I could have a birthday party being a non-custodial parent. I was really that shut down. And so my daughter's favorite color was purple, and I threw her a purple birthday party. We had purple balloons, purple cakes, and it's one of the things that she remembers most.
My coworkers would say, oh, she's crazy, or she doesn't have the elevator going all the way up, and little comments that were very stigmatizing, like people with mental illness were not smart or were not normal. It was just a big stigma of being a parent with mental health issues and substance use abuse disorder.
There were a few folks who stopped talking to me. It seemed like it was more a loss of respect. There were folks where it just seemed a little overly sympathetic, like I was less. What I did though to try and overcome it was ignore it and to really try and focus on what I needed to do with the kids.
It's difficult to say to him anything in regards to like my substance abuse or my mental health. He knows I do not drink alcohol. He knows I drink Diet Coke, iced coffee, and seltzer water. He knows that I go to meetings. He knows mommy's talking doctor is very important to her. And he knows I take medication. We will have the conversation with him when he's older. But other than that, there's not too much we've shared yet because he's small.
And one of the things that's really helpful is how important it is for me to self-assess with my interactions with them. I try to ask questions, how are you feeling? And then to validate his feeling and appreciate him sharing it with me. And I share little snippets how I've had to deal with challenges, that it's okay to feel your feelings and that he can deal with them. He also knows that his mother and I are both in addiction, mental health, and trauma recovery. And he knows that we don't drink or use other drugs. So we talk about this stuff. We're open about it. And I've taken him to AA meetings in the community. That's one of my supports. He knows about recovery.
I think we were both so traumatized that we could not talk about feelings or issues, and really did not do that. I think we could have used some family therapy to help us talk about the emotions and process some of what was going on.
In the beginning, it was very, very hard, a relationship with my children, but today it's a lot better. What helped us was doing family counseling. By doing family counseling, we were able to talk to each other about things that we couldn't talk to each other without a therapist there. We were able to get out a lot of things that was bothering us that we didn't know. For example, I would always yell at my children. I never really talked to them. Well, out of family therapy, I started talking more, treating them more with respect, not swearing as much. So those were successes that I've gotten through the therapy of how to talk to my children. We're getting along so much better today now that we know about our diagnosis, and now that we know how to take care of ourselves, we're able to take care of each other.
You know, as a person with a serious mental illness, you have a burden to carry. And so it really makes sense to have someone helping you carry that burden. The biggest support has been my family, especially my parents. Without them, I would not be here. They have been with me since day one. When they realized that they could not reason with me, they just learned everything they could about my illness, and they were ready to be there when I was ready to have them there. It's really important to have someone there in your corner all the time.
The supports I had when I first started getting sick were professional supports. I had a psychiatrist. She was really supportive. She believed in me. I had my family. I got a psychologist that I started working with. That was the difference of my whole life. You know, while that was informative, it wasn't as important as the relationships that I built with people. I can see that the relationships are so important for people. Talking with each other is really important, and just being able to share. So it was peer support, which really, made the difference.
I have a ton of family support, which has helped me develop faith. Also, exercise is a huge support. I have a wellness recovery action plan, which I have a game plan on what I got to do to be well, to look at, what I got to do to be well on a daily basis. What do I got to leave in my life? What do I got to leave out? I'm a member of a gym community. I've been going to the same gym for over 10 years. So there's a community of people, and there's people in recovery there, and there's people that I work out with. So that culture of that community at the gym is a big part of my recovery. There's recovery support centers that are all throughout the state, and recovery learning communities as well. So peer support is a huge support.
I got a lot of help from the school. They made me the class parent, which helped me overcome some of the stigma that the other parents felt towards me. They had not let Ren come play at my house when I was in early sobriety. And as I became a class parent, they got more used to me and loosened up a little bit. They also put on a forum of parents in recovery, talking about their recovery at the school. And that made me feel less alone and less shameful. And so that was very helpful. As I developed new therapists and got further along in recovery, I was able to discuss every aspect of parenting, and they were very helpful. In the beginning, though, I was too afraid to really bring up the issues because I was afraid I would lose custody or that I would lose time with my child. Some resources that I know of now would be Horizons for the Homeless Children's Centers, the DMH wraparound services for parents, and the DMH parent program.
I was not able to talk about parenting with my mental health providers, most likely because my children were already big by now. So they didn't feel the need to talk to me about parenting since I didn't have young children. My children were older. So I never actually got to talk about parenting and parenting styles and things like that with my therapist.
I was lucky enough and I met my now psychiatrist and my now therapist, and they believed in me more than anything in the world. There was never a point where they just were not literally always in my corner. They still are. Just in their belief in me that I could do it and I could do it well. And they would walk me through my shame and walk me through my pain and have me talk about my pain. I started to use social media. I also used other recovery blogs, and I would follow what people wrote. And I, see someone write that they had lost everything too. And I was like, okay, I'm not alone. And so I used reading as a strong tool. This Is My Brave, a few different recovery happy hour podcasts. And I really started to just try to open myself up to all the different ways there are to recover.
Well, I encourage people to feel their feelings, deal with their feelings, and to heal from the things that happen to them, and to know in their heart and mind that recovery is real.
There's help out there. You will be successful. Don't give up. Continue to talk about things that bother you. Continue to talk about things that you like. You are not alone. There's a lot of us out here that's doing this.
My experience has been that, you can come back from an illness, you can be great, loving parents, have a terrific time with your kids. It doesn't have to end your relationship in any way.
Just keep trying and looking for support, natural resources in your community. Talk to your therapist, talk to your friends. And, I came from a very dark place and I have a good relationship with my daughter. I did get custody back. It is a struggle, but you can make it through and be a successful parent.
The best reward of all of this is I hope another mother sees this, because I know that I needed more moms in my shoes. Life gets so much better, and my son is just walking proof of that. I didn't know that I'd ever get any of that back. I really didn't. If you work hard enough and you believe in yourself, I think that we can all get the life that we deserve.
Okay. That is such a touching video, and I can't wait to hear what you all have to say. I'm going to let Elisa take us through some questions with the panelists. Thanks, Elisa.
Thank you very much. We have about 4 categories to cover. Sounds like a lot, but we're going to move through them pretty quickly. Different people will be answering different questions. Our first topic is around stigma and ostracism. And our first question is, how have you experienced and dealt with self-stigma as it relates to parenting? And if you could please give an example. Cynthia, could you answer that?
Sure. I would say that the biggest sign of self-stigma in my life has been an insecurity that somehow my depression would hurt my daughter. And talking about my doubts with my husband and other trusted peers and friends and family really has helped, because of course what's become clear is that there's no such thing as perfect parenting for anybody with or without mental health challenges, and that the goal really is to be a good enough parent. And that really involves being mindful and loving, and that's something I strive to do.
Thank you very much. Our next question in this category is, how have you experienced and dealt with feeling ostracized by others as it relates to parenting? And also, if you could give an example. Jackie, could you answer this?
I definitely can. So I have experienced feelings of being ostracized by family members and people that really don't know me. That in turn made me doubt, whether or not I should have my kids. I'm raising my granddaughter right now, and many times I thought, okay, should I give her back? Oh, I have no option. But the ability, what has helped me be a good parent and overcome these feelings have been being a peer support. Um, and I decided that I was gonna break that cycle of insecurities or doubts that was instilled upon me when I was a child, really. Um, Many people have said that I will fail, so I seeked out help because everything was a secret. So I needed for things not to be a secret for me to have an open and honest conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Our next category is around relationships with your children. Our first question for Cynthia. How did you decide the right time to begin talking to your child about your own mental health?
Yeah, the key question for parents about everything. And what I would say is that I think I followed the same guideline that I have with virtually everything with my daughter Lee, which is to let her take the lead and to follow what her lead is by what questions she asks. And so that has worked generally as a good guidepost. I have to say that I consciously decided when my daughter was 10 and I had to be hospitalized for depression, that it was important to talk to her about that and not wait for her to ask questions about why mommy isn't around. And my husband and I sat down with her and I explained that I was going to the hospital because I was feeling I really needed help. And what I hoped was that that would give her the message that if she ever needed help of this sort or any other, that it would be okay to talk about it and to do it. And she said, how can you be depressed? You're always so happy. And I had to say, I know I look that way, but inside I don't feel that way. And she cared most about two questions. One was, did she cause my problem? And number two was, would I get better and come home? And all I could tell her was, no, she didn't cause it. And I was going to do everything I could to get better, and which I did. And that seemed to help.
It's wonderful. If I could just add, clearly that also relates back to the stigma and reducing the stigma. So that's a very nice story. Our next question is for Anne. If you had periods of strain in your relationship with your child, how did you overcome those challenging periods?
Well, first of all, it takes time. I would say the most challenging time came when she graduated from college and began to look back on what her life had been like. And she became very angry about the fact that I'd had to be absent for some time. But we began a series of discussions where we talked about it and talked about what we'd both been through. The sessions were, just between the two of us, but they were brief. In other words, we didn't go on for hours, and we'd intersperse them with fun things that we enjoyed doing together. And we both had therapists, so that was good. Actually, when we began the conversation and had some difficult time, we could take it back to our therapist and then come back together. And that was just extremely helpful. We have a great relationship now. It was a tough time to come through, but coming through it on the other side makes me feel like we have such a wonderful relationship, and we've forgiven each other, and
I came away knowing, given my illness, I was the best parent that I could be.
Wonderful. So touching. Our next question, which I'm going to ask two panelists, do you think that there is something your child has gained from the experience of having a parent living with a mental health condition? Let's start with Jackie.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Yes, resiliency, lots and lots and lots of resiliency for my kids. I have a 23-year-old that just graduated from college. By the way, he just got his first real job yesterday, full time. So happy. So my children are more open and curious about what's going on and helping others and helping themselves. I remember that my youngest, when he started college, he was really having a hard time, and he actually seeked out help and wasn't afraid, because we've always, we developed this wonderful relationship about, how talking about our feelings and how we could help others and ourselves. So they have shared their own experiences, and they'll always volunteer me, I don't know, to help others. But I think that they really help themselves by doing that. I remember that he wrote about his experience living with a mother and us raising a niece with mental health challenges and substance misuse. So that was his Common Core essay, and it really went a long way. For that, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Terrific. Cynthia, could you also answer this question?
Sure. I just want to comment that I think one of the things that I take away from what Jackie said is how she really did break the cycle of secrecy, as demonstrated by her son's ability to talk publicly about what his experiences had been. So kudos to you, my dear. And what I would say is that I hope that what my daughter has gotten has been the message that it's just as important to seek help for emotional as well as physical concerns that you have, that they're equally important, and that it's important to show compassion to others, and to remember that you can never know really what's going on inside of somebody else. So try not to make too many assumptions. Just like I looked like I was happy when I was profoundly depressed, other people may be carrying stuff around, and so show a little compassion and curiosity in dealing with them. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next topic is related to recovery. The first question is, in the video, it's noted that there are many paths to wellness. For example, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, known as WRAP. Could you share what types of recovery plans have been helpful for you, Jackie?
Most definitely the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. That's it. That's it's evolving. So I think I'm on my 12th action plan, which actually I figure out what do I look like when I'm doing well, and what works for me, what doesn't work for me. I have a plan who could help out, the supporters that I could call when I'm kind of struggling. And if I do need, if I do need to take a break, I have that written into my plan, and who would take over just in case, you never know. But like I said, it's evolving. So I have one for parenting. I have one like if I'm struggling with substance misuse challenges and like my own mental health struggles. So I have like 6 wraps going on right now. So rapid array. I facilitate a parenting support group with one in Spanish and one in English, which has been great. NAMI, Family to Family. Their one of the signature programs and their support groups that go along with it, to name a few.
That's wonderful. I'm glad there are so many resources that exist that parents can avail themselves of, as you are. If I could just segue a little bit, Anne, could you briefly just kind of explain to our attendees what Wellness Recovery Action Plan WRAP is?
Well, it's a little bit like having a plan in place where you would put down what, as Jackie said, what you look like when you are well and what plans you would have were you to get ill and who might take care of your child or who you wanted to be in touch with or who they should call. So it's laid out in a plan, and you usually do it with a group of other peers to put it in place.
Terrific. Thank you for that. Our next question in the recovery section, we're going to ask all three of you this. What was most effective in your wellness journey that has also been essential for your parenting? Let's start with Cynthia.
Okay. Well, what I would say is that peer support, therapy, meaningful work are all critical parts of what has been helpful for me and given me the chance to discuss my myriad and other people's myriad parenting issues at different stages of my daughter's life. All of those.
Terrific. Anne?
Well, I got to say the most important thing to my recovery was finding a medication that worked for me. I had bipolar disorder with psychosis, and I spent a long time trying to find a medication that worked. The second thing that was really important is that I stopped drinking, and that made a huge difference in my parenting skills. And thirdly, I got to say the DBS support meetings that I went to early on in recovery, the parents I met there, the events we did together was a huge, huge support to me in terms of parenting.
That's terrific. Wonderful. And Jackie?
All righty, I'm trying to figure this out. What's on first? So first of all, being open and honest with myself. That in turn took me to asking for help. I received peer support. I don't know what I will do without it. Staying clean and sober, medications, my providers, NAMI has definitely helped in its different signature programs, and just being part of creating change. Most definitely.
Yes. Being a vehicle and a model for that. Exactly.
Oh, in the PTA.
Terrific. Terrific.
Parent Teacher Association.
Our last topic is around resources and support. Going back to Jackie, our first question, how did starting to receive services impact your parenting?
Well, at the beginning, I was absolutely terrified. I have had traumatic experiences. I'm dealing with the Department of Social Services of Children and Families, or DSS or DCF, whatever alphabet soup you're connected with. But then I had this wonderful social worker that helped out with my 12-year-old granddaughter. I'm in my last stages of adopting her. And talking to, she was absolutely wonderful. I had an experience when they came knocking, knocking down my door, and the police, and having somebody working with me and part of a wraparound program involving, I was the vehicle, I was the driver in my own plan, and making sure that my kids were well as myself. Breaking the negative cycle, and receiving peer support, knowing that I'm not alone. And in turn, I just realized this before we came on this presentation, that I was part of, a very small part of this resource that we've developed here in Massachusetts at the Department of Mental Health, and it's called a different kind of hurt. It's called Isaac's Story, and if you look it up, and it's in like 25 languages translated. It's an animated version for children to talk about their different kind of feelings. I'm like, oh my goodness, I was part of that way before I was part of this. And sometimes I forget what has happened and gotten me here. So, there are many people and places that take us to where we're at today.
Before I go to the next question, I'm glad you mentioned that, because although I'm currently not a parent, it really was very insightful and informative to watch Isaac's Story. So it was really a privilege. I'm glad to hear you were part of that. Our next question, I'd actually like to invite all of you to answer. So in the video, various types of support were discussed, including peer support, individual therapy, family therapy. What types of support would you say have been the most beneficial in relation to your parenting? Let's start with Anne.
I would say individual therapy has been really the most important. My therapist was a founder of the Stone Center in Wellesley and very relationship focused. So she was always talking to me on, what would be the best to maintain the relationship. She had children of her own, and that was very helpful. She was more than willing to reveal some of her struggles, and that made me feel somewhat normalized in terms of, my own parenting. The other thing that was just incredibly important was the parent support group at DBSA. I got to compare with other parents. We had some fun. Our children, it was helpful for our children because they got together. We had a party sponsored Bipolar Beverages, and all the children dressed up as polar bears and handed out candies. So, that made a huge difference in not feeling alone.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Cynthia.
I'm going to start by mentioning a couple of things that really related back to the last question about services, because I forgot to mention them. And two services that I received that really changed my life and helped my parenthood and my life were receiving electroconvulsive therapy for my depression, which has been very stigmatized in the world, but I was able to talk to my daughter about it, which made it easier for me to talk to other places. And on the flip side, receiving and learning Reiki, which is a complementary and alternative healing modality. And it's kind of very interesting that both of these modalities involve energy shifts, and they both have helped enormously. And my need to talk about them or my ability to talk about them has helped a lot. And so that leads me to the fact that dealing with peers around support, individual therapy, group therapy, and doing work that really matters in trying to bring attention to lessons learned. All of that works together to help support me. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for referring back to the previous question. Jackie.
Right. There's so many things that have helped along our journey. So most definitely individual therapy. And I had to shop around for that, because I think like 8 therapists, we were just not the right fit. But finally I got the right therapist. Family therapy. Currently we're receiving in-home therapy. the family support groups for NAMI, and the peer support groups for NAMI Connections.
That's terrific. It's so wonderful that all of you have supports that not only exist, but that you can avail yourself of. That's just wonderful. Our conclusion question is related to the video itself. Wondering, all three of you, how the creating of this video and sharing it with the community have helped in your parenting journey. Let's start with Cynthia.
I think it's helped in a number of ways, but I'm going to stress a couple. One is, I think it's helped to give legitimacy to the importance of the parenting role in our lives. I think that there's a preconception that somehow if people have mental health issues, that they either shouldn't be parents or will have, many, many more problems in doing the role. And I think that this video has given an opportunity to really give voice to the variety of issues, but also strengths, how strong we are, not just not how wrong we are. And I also think it's given people a chance to hear our stories. I think that's very powerful.
Thank you. Jackie.
Oh, the creation of this video and sharing it with the community, I'm like so proud. That's all I talk about everywhere I go. That, it has helped me, like, I'm thinking in Spanish and trying to speak in English and I can't get in either language. How do I say this? It helps me feel more grounded, in my own secure, and more secure that I can do this and so can you. That thing, it takes a village. It really takes a village. We can't do this alone. Ask for help. There is help out there. So I just want the whole world to see it and, offer a helping hand if you can.
That's wonderful. Anne.
I want to echo what Cynthia and Jackie have said. In addition to that, it's helped me open a discussion again with my daughter and improved our relationships. And actually, we're planning a sons and daughters video as a follow-up to this. And all of our children will be in the video. They volunteered and been excited about it. And also the support of all the peer consultants that helped make this video has been very wonderful to me, and help reassure me about all my parenting.
That's wonderful. As we wrap up this discussion, I want to add and build on what Anne said before I wrap up a couple of comments. It's almost like dropping a stone in a pond and sharing this video around the community and around the United States and beyond is something that would be terrific. So hopefully that will continue because this is a fabulous, fabulous project. Couple of items. If you have questions, we realize that we have run out of time for questions during this particular event. But if you do have questions, should they email you, Maria, or Anne?
They can email either one of us. Anne, would you prefer that goes straight to you?
No, either one, whoever they prefer.
Okay.
So I put my email in the chat, or the email was on a slide, or you'll send it out?
Let me go ahead and reshare my screen because I have some contact information. Oops.
If I can just add while Maria's getting set up, another reason you might like to, and hopefully will reach out to one or both of these ladies, is if you are interested in sharing this video with your constituents, to feel free to reach out to them for further information on how to get that started.
Okay. All right. Everybody seeing? Sorry about this. There we go. So to find out more information, go to mghcoe.com. We are going to have this, this is being recorded, and we are going to have this on our website, and we are going to send out follow-up emails to participants where we'll have this contact information. But thank you for this. This is so important. The piece about your kids growing up, seeing you take care and to be brave and talk openly about is so important. It teaches them that they'll be able to do that too. And they're going to know other people and not have these incorrect thoughts that just because you live with the mood disorder means you can't have a fulfilling life. So thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you have a good rest of your summit.